Day.
Sorry.
And we have a hybrid conference for commission meeting. Wednesday, March 15th at 5:30 p.m. And at this time, I will request John to lead us to the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, Christina, we have the agenda posted.
Yes, the agenda has been posted.
So we will start with the roll call, please.
Good evening, commissioners on Zoom this evening. Please unmute your mics at this time. Commissioner Adams,
Present.
Breslin,
Present.
Badillo,
Present.
Burke,
Present.
Corcoran.
He'll be joining shortly.
Thank you. Dada,
Here.
Beltman,
Here.
Hedrick,
Present.
Hughes,
Present.
Michaelis,
Present.
Miller,
Here.
Payne,
Present.
Hyde, Schmitz,
Here.
Salama,
Here.
Suero, and Wiseman.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Christina. At this time, I will entertain a motion for the acceptance of the agenda. So moved. Second. So we have a motion and a second. Any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. At this time is set aside for public comment. Limited to 3 minutes on any subject within the purview of the commission. And Christina, do we have any speakers?
We have no scheduled speakers for this evening, and we have no one in the public in the meeting that wish to speak this evening. Do we have anyone on Zoom that would like to speak in public comments at this time for general public comments? We do not have anyone wishing to speak in public comments.
Seeing none, at this time I will close public comments and we move on, and I will entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes from the December meeting. So moved. Second. So we have a motion and a second. Any changes to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, we move on and discussion and action on 7A Airport Wi-Fi.
Thank you, Chairman Dada. So I'm actually standing in for Director Larry Klingeman, who's the IT director. He wasn't able to make it tonight, but I understand there were some questions regarding the performance of the Wi-Fi at the airport. We have made the Wi-Fi a priority with IT. I think I want to start there. That's the first thing. So within our budget, we've resourced for additional Wi-Fi and IT resources, including personnel, as well as infrastructure. The biggest thing I think he wanted me to communicate to the group was that this is a really old building and it's got a lot of delayed maintenance in it. So figuring out, how to upgrade systems, that's been a challenge, not only on the IT side, but on the airport side as well. Larry is committed to making sure that we upgrade the Wi-Fi here in the airport. He is hiring a consultant to take a look around and not just assess whether the terminal needs it, but also the airfield as well. Once we have a firm understanding of what that looks like, then we can start the work of actually making that happen. But what's happened over time is we basically piecemeal and work everything together. And frankly, it's just not working like much of the building. So Like the rest of the city and the rest of the department heads, we're having to go through this exercise of understanding what happened with our predecessors before us. Doing a level set and then actually doing the work of making sure to get it right. And that's what's happening now. So I'm happy to take any questions on that. I don't have much information to offer. Obviously, I'm not the IT director, but I can pass the information along to Larry and have him provide additional information as necessary.
Aaron, let me ask you, knowing that, this is one of the most important part of expectations this day and age from everyone, businesses, conventioners, travelers, on and on. What can this commission, in my opinion, do to help you? In my opinion, we should have on board, in fact, an IT director. That's my personal feeling, and wanting to see how difficult it is when you have some issues and customer complaints, challenges, and get the support from the city hall, because you are currently wholly dependent on city hall.
This is true, we are. I think the idea of an IT director specifically for the airport is one that's been floated before. In the past, it's been shut down. The city managers didn't want to move in that direction just because one city will fight, right? Like everybody's supposed to be working together. And if we play along well, then in theory, things should work seamlessly across all departments. We do have a new city manager. He's only been in the job a week. Still needs to come in and look around and understand the issues that we have citywide. Certainly needs to take a look around the airport, and we haven't had a chance to bring him over to do that yet. But I think once he gets entrenched in the issues, then we'll have discussions about what that looks like on an organizational level. But in terms of, are we funded for it? Can we do it? Can we roll it out strategically over time? Yes, absolutely, we can do that.
Especially knowing that, you and your team are so short with FTEs. This time with, again, a new CEO here, I understand he doesn't have the airport experience coming in from Garden Grove, but in speaking to him and talking to him, I have a strong feeling he's very committed to give support to the airport, and he will also be joining, and again, this is to all the commissioners. From here on, he will be joining our meetings. And this is the time for us to make a move and make it happen, especially like you're so short. Any other comments from any other commissioners? Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. So beyond the yourself, the chair and the co-chair, actually working and trying to lobby the manager to be able to approve the director position. Why can't each of the commissioners as well go lobby, not only the manager, but the city council? You get one or two voices, that's one thing, but you get 10, 12, 19 voices, that'll put the pressure on them. I would even suggest for those non-Palm Springs city commissioners to get their city managers involved. Because this is important. You mentioned, Harry, that this has been requested before, it's been shut down. But we're not a small airport anymore. I mean, we're, there's a saying, build it and they will come. Well, people have come, they're here. We've got 3 million passengers walking through the front door. But beyond the Wi-Fi, I'm kind of wondering what else is lacking. And so I think that the airport really needs to be run more so as a business and really not independent of Palm Springs, but a priority within the city. Thank you.
Thank you both for your comment. Yes, Scott.
Harry, what are your plans or your thoughts to extend the Wi-Fi into the parking lot as well as the terminal areas?
Yes, it is. So In fact, one of the projects that we're working on, which involves the economy parking lot and employee parking lot, that was actually scoped into that design, was improving the Wi-Fi and the IT infrastructure in those. So as we start to do those major projects where we historically haven't had that infrastructure, you know, in the ground or in the building, we're starting to incorporate that now.
Okay, thank you.
So I said a bunch of questions, and got kind of replies that I thought were needed a lot more, a little too vague. So could we, with Larry, before the next commission meeting, set up some kind of way to have a good give and take on Wi-Fi and networking and infrastructure? Is that possible?
I'll have to ask Larry. Frankly, it really is up to his schedule and what he's got going on. I can ask the question and certainly report back to you.
Super. Since we've got a concession program that's going to be heavily dependent on networking, I guess my concern is we don't move quickly, it seems, on many things, and the concession has to get a commitment to the airport on backhaul, Wi-Fi, bandwidth, availability, reliability, and its revenue, right? How are we going to thread the eye of that needle if they're coming up with a project plan that depends on certain technology and Larry is getting up to speed in technology? So I'm struggling, I'm worried.
So my understanding is that the concessionaires have been working directly with IT to identify their needs in terms of what they'll need to do to execute the project that we approved or the city council approved a couple of months ago. And from what I understand, as long as IT understands that, they can plan around those specific issues and make those happen. Now, more broadly, the entire facility is suffering, you know, and we have these challenges, not just with concessionaires, but, you know, even in our own offices, we struggle with these challenges.
Yeah.
The problem is that, you know, as projects were done over time in the past, you know, systems weren't upgraded. And then when we did have IT infrastructure upgrades, it was usually very piecemeal. It wasn't an entire look at the entire facility. So a couple of years ago, IT started that transition of making sure that we were coming up with an IT master plan. They're still working on that. But that's going to take some time. It doesn't happen overnight, obviously. So as issues come up, we're addressing them, but for now, it's a matter of getting somebody in here who can take a look at the entire campus, understand how the entire campus operates, and then start to triage from there.
Is one of the options outsourcing? If you could outsource the whole problem for both concessioners, public and ops, and be able to do it very quickly that way. So is that an option?
There are potential areas where we can outsource, but we also have some cybersecurity concerns that have become more relevant here lately that it would not be in our interest to outsource.
Well, I'd love to hear what those are. I mean, other people have outsourced with security assurance addressed, right?
So and that's all stuff that Larry can talk about way above my head. I'm not an IT guy and I'm an airplanes guy, but
Super. Well, we welcome Larry.
I'll let him know.
Yeah, if we can get that Larry to come also and join us, and hopefully we will have a new CEO at the next month meeting. That can be a nice eye opener for our new CEO, and hopefully Larry will be more accommodating to your need and your staff need and the commission.
Yeah, and I mean, feel free to, you know, if there are specific questions that you all have, feel free to shoot them to me and I can pass them to Larry in the interim and make sure that, you know, if he's able to respond, he can provide that response. If not, then we'll tell you that we're just not there yet, but.
Yeah,
Would it be appropriate if he can't come before the next committee meeting to ask him to join an operations committee, subcommittee meeting? To ask some of those questions with a dialogue on that? I mean, would that be an appropriate, you know?
is that for Larry or our CEO?
No, Larry.
That's put on a request. I think the operations committee meeting is during the day.
Yes, it is.
So that would be even more appropriate for Larry. And we can put in a request and see if we can answer those questions, and the committee can then give a report to the entire commission.
Well, we'll take that note back and we'll ask them and make sure that he's on board.
Yeah, and I think it's appropriate, in fact, we've been kicking it around within committee members. That's something that we should take a hard look at. And there are a number of people on the committee who have a background in IT, in airport IT. And so I think that dialogue would be a good start.
Good suggestion, Commissioner Miller.
Thank you.
Any other discussion before we move on to 7B?
Are there any
Yeah.
commissioners on Zoom that would, I see Commissioner Wiseman?
Yeah. So you mentioned that Larry is intending to hire a consultant. And I just wanted to get more details on the selection process and procurement. Because we've, seen in the past that sometimes the airport's procurement projects don't get the highest priority at the city.
But so I can tell you recently, the airport's procurement projects have been getting the highest priority. In fact, we've pretty much overwhelmed our procurement department with airport projects. So keep in mind with IT that's a citywide project. It's not just airport, right? So they're going to be looking at airport, but it's citywide, specific to the airport and the police and fire systems in particular, just because they're the largest systems in the city. So so I'm sure it'll get the level of attention that it's supposed to get. But it wouldn't be for lack of getting it through procurement, since we pretty much overwhelmed them with our projects for the last couple of months.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we move on to 7B. Airport logo discussion and recommendation. Do we have any money from? Go ahead.
I'm happy to start believing that works okay for the team. Yeah, and before I turn it over to Katie from Aviatrix, and by the way, thank you, Katie, for joining us, happy person from San Diego. I wanted to brief the commission on where we are in this process and all of the steps that took us to where we are today. As Harry noted in the staff memo that's in the board packet, this process of developing the logo began in the spring, almost a year ago, of 2022. Since then, the process has seen 2 public meetings with a presentation from Aviatrix at both, as well as a link to a survey that was asked to solicit more feedback from the public. Then we moved to a larger stakeholder group of 14 that included representation from the preservation, graphic design community. And again, that group was also given a survey to obtain more feedback from them in that process. Based on that feedback, Aviatrix presented revised logos to a smaller stakeholder group. And once again, we obtained additional feedback. Aviatrix took that information back and brought to a once again smaller group 9 final logos that we recently looked at. Then that group narrowed it down to 4 logos that was presented last month to the marketing and business development committee. And we reviewed them and we came up with a final logo that's being presented tonight. I'll let the members of the committee speak for themselves, but what I will share with you during that meeting was we had overwhelmingly positive feedback from the group on the work that was presented. And during the meeting, we chose one final logo. So I'll turn it over to Katie now from Aviatrix. She's going to brief all of you on where we stand today. She's going to present the logo, and then we'll have discussion. And after that, we'll make a motion to approve the logo that's been presented. Then this group will take it on to City Council to be determined which meeting, right? I believe one of the early April meetings.
Sounds like it may go next week.
They go next week, and that's what we live for. Great, so that's really music to my ears. So without further ado, Katie,
Thank you, Todd.
send it over to you.
All right, well, hello, everyone. As Commissioner Burke said, my name is Katie Franco. I'm the owner of Aviatrix Communications, and we've been working with the airport team on developing a new logo identity. And Todd touched on some of the steps we've taken to get here today, but I do want to elaborate a little bit. And starting with the logo you see on the screen there, This is the logo that the airport has been working with for many years now. It is not as versatile as they would like it to be. You cannot stack it. There is no way to make it into a social media icon. There's no fully built out color palette. And so they're looking for something that works across all mediums. And that was the impetus for our conversations and our work here. But in the logo design process, it was really important for the airports to be sure they were capturing a variety of audiences and preferences in this process. So we worked with airport staff. We commissioned several community surveys. We held public meetings, several stakeholder focus groups, and then working with the commissioners and the marketing committee for review. And in fact, this was so important for everyone to have a voice that we worked with all of those people at least a second time. So really, there's been a lot of opportunity for participation across stakeholders, the public, and the airport staff as well. The airport staff, of course, is one of the most important stakeholders. And so they were the first ones we worked with to help understand how they want to be perceived in their community. We started with establishing their mission, vision, and values statements. And these are really important because they're the foundation for how they behave and how they want to be perceived in their community. So they talk about the goals the airport has, how employees want to work with each other, and then again, how they want to be seen by their customers and community. So this is the mission statement there, and working with a cross section of employees, you'll see there's administration, there's marketing, there's operations, security, finance, really getting a cross section so we understood at all levels how they wanted to be perceived. And you'll see that's the airport mission statement. And then the keywords for their logo identity coming out of that were cheerful, welcoming, diverse, and bold. In this process, the airport took several surveys in order to capture and synthesize feedback, and then meetings in order to talk to audiences directly. So starting in March 2022, we worked with a third party to do a blind survey, phone survey across the Coachella Valley to understand how people felt about air travel and the airports. We also deployed a public survey in the fall of 2022 that was more directly about the draft logos and the design process. More than 500 people responded as part of that survey. And then we conducted a small stakeholder group survey after talking with them directly about the logos, getting their feedback on paper, so we were able to synthesize it as well. We also conducted focus groups, the first being held in 2021, and those stakeholders included a variety of groups here. You'll see the City of Palm Springs and airport staff, but also business and tourism leaders, local designers, and the airport marketing committee. We also held 2 public meetings in the fall as part of the public logo process, and nearly 70 people attended those meetings. And then the stakeholder group, we had a larger stakeholder group of 14 people where we dived very deeply into the logos and design opportunities, and then continued on with a smaller stakeholder group to finish up the process. In addition to talking to people and listening to them directly, we did our research into what makes this region so unique and the design and architecture standards that are here in Palm Springs and the Coachella Valley, specifically mid-century modernism. So you'll see clean lines, use of geometric shapes and then negative or white space, and then integration of man-made and natural or indoor and outdoor. And so making sure that we are focusing more directly on these elements in our revisions. We also looked at some of the successful logos and identities here that already exist in the community. You'll see a variety of, again, bold colors and strong fonts, oranges, golds, greens, blues, and then you'll see some of the fonts are more traditional, mid-century modern, like maybe the Palm Springs welcome sign there, and then more modern takes on the mid-century and modern aesthetic, like visit Greater Palm Springs there with their choice of fonts and colors. And then with this logo, we want to be sure that we're capturing the local identity and the airport, but we also want to be sure we're positioning the airport in the regional aviation network. So we looked at the competitor airports around here. You'll see Ontario, Long Beach, Los Angeles, San Diego, John Wayne, and San Bernardino. There are a lot of commonalities. You'll see blue is very prevalent in airport logos, not just here, but across the country. About half of them use the airport code, so ONT or LAX. Half of them have planes, half of them use white or negative space. And then there are a variety of tones. So LAX is very bold, very strong. SBD has sort of an abstract look at its runway as part of its identity. And then Long Beach has that Southern California color gradient, palm tree, lowercase lettering that gives it a different personality than the others. One important thing to note here is that none of these use the city identity or the governing agency. There's no city seals. They are all independent brands or logos to market and identify themselves as separate from city services. So with the stakeholder participation, again, we conducted the larger stakeholder group in October, and then sent out a survey to help capture those ideas and suggestions on paper, and then meeting with the stakeholders to refine in both December and January. So we met with people like Lisa Vossler-Smith, Colleen Pace, J.R. Roberts, Gary Wexler. We heard from a good group of people throughout these several meetings, and their feedback was really important, both in understanding their current thoughts and then how we might refine to be more specific to Palm Springs. There's a tremendous amount of feedback as part of this. You can see the public comments that were submitted to the city, 3 surveys with more than 500 responses, 2 public meetings, 6 focus groups. It was a lot to process, but we really took it to heart. And we listened when the community talked about the color palette and items where, you know, the airport may have initially wanted something bold and not traditional for airports. It was very clear in this process that the city and the community wanted something with a stronger mid-century modern aesthetic. So we went back again, looking at color palettes and fonts. We took specific feedback on the types of palm trees that could be representative of the region. We used more negative space, stronger geometry, and we did hear actually that we should continue to pursue the idea of an airport code as part of the logo. And that was some really great feedback that we were able to take and synthesize and process into several drafts and concepts. And excuse me there. So as Todd said, we started refining some of the originals. We brought in new concepts. Each of those new concepts had variations on their theme. We presented dozens to the airport and the small stakeholders group and worked through them. And then in January, we presented 9 final drafts to the stakeholder group and the airport. They chose their 4 favorites, and we brought those 4 favorites to the marketing committee last month. The marketing committee chose their favorite and a number 2 favorite as well. But the overall overwhelming favorite was a single logo. So not only does the airport staff like this one the best, the stakeholders and the committee liked it the best. So there was a lot of agreement that this was the one that they felt represented them the best. And that one is geometric plane. So this one, I personally love the balance of, you know, strong angularity and then the roundness of the lowercase font. So telling you a little bit about geometric plane. This is contemporary and clean and sophisticated, which were definitely requests from the community and the airport. It's got deep roots in mid-century modernism, and you can see that color palette again, the font choice, the white space. It's 4 abstract geometric shapes put together, and you've got sort of a plane taking off up and to the right. We had one of the commissioners in the marketing committee say that white space is also reminiscent of the wind turbines outside the city, which I thought was a really great take on it as well. The font is Gotham, which is pretty popular. You've seen it in the Obama 2008 campaign. It's on the One World Trade Center, but those lowercase treatment of it. And those big round bowls of the P and the A and the G really work in tandem with the sharp geometric angles of that square. So we really liked how they complement each other. And then the mid-century modern color palette, the 4 colors come together to tell a story. So you've got the red brick desert and the green grass and the blue sky and the cheery sun that has both the palette of a mid-century modern identity, but does really fit in theme and in tandem with the airport as an identity itself. So the other thing that the team was especially excited about is the versatility of this logo. And you can see it stacks vertically for when space is tight. It has a great horizontal aspect. It works really well in one color, or black and white there. And then it has an opportunity to use the PSP airport code when it's relevant, when it's necessary. It wouldn't be the primary, but it is wonderful that this particular logo gives that opportunity to the number 2 logo, for example, it doesn't have the ability to translate with the PSP airport code in the same way. And so this one really came out ahead for being more versatile. It's going to be especially important to Daniel as he creates social media icons, puts things on lanyards and business cards and uniforms, and it's got a lot of variety and versatility. And I think that's, I'll certainly let everybody chime in, but that was one of the main reasons this one was so successful, is because we were able to plan ahead to use it in a variety of mediums. And my last slide here is pending logo approval from the commission today. Our team will be running in parallel tracks. The original RFP was for the logo identity and a website to go with it. So when we have the chosen identity, we can use it to create the themes and the fonts and the style of the website. We'll be building that out in earnest this spring. And at the same time, we'll be working on developing that campaign material to prep for a July 1 launch. So the priorities would be reaching the employees first, being the number 1 stakeholder, and they would get first crack at it, and getting uniforms, badges, business cards, maybe some swag, to introduce the logo to everybody. And then stakeholders introducing this logo to the Visit Greater Palm Springs, others who would be able to share your logo on their websites, vendor updates here on campus if they're using it on their receipts or their menus, or their websites as well. And then a public launch July 1, which would be the website, social media icon updates, on-site banners in the parking lot, anything that Daniel feels we could use to introduce with a little bit of a wow factor, the new logo on campus for your passengers as well.
Thank you, Katie. I appreciate that very much. So, shall we open it for discussion? Questions, comments?
Also, sorry, before we get started, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take commissioner comments first. And then we're gonna open up for the public to give comments also, so they have the opportunity to give public comments on this logo specifically.
Great, thanks, Christina. Question?
Based on the process, this is a 2-part question. So the length of time it's taken, the amount of input that you've received to get us to where we are today, for airports of similar size in your experience, are we 10x or about right or faster than anybody else? And then the second question is, how do we improve the process going forward if we do something like this?
That is 2 great questions. I would say, having gone through the branding process for the logo development process, especially with San Diego, which is where I come from and my marketing director cohort comes from as well. This process has been much more participatory from a community level. It's very difficult to design by committee, but it was so important to the airport commission and the airport staff that we really have some cohesive conversations about how the logo should feel and look. That lengthened the process more than other airports or agencies who would go in with their stakeholders, their staff, their board members, work out the ideas and adopt them that way. Very rarely does it go out for public feedback or input because everybody's audience is different and diverse, and you could never get real consensus on one item about anything. I think lessons learned from the way this process went about, in order to speed up, I would start with the community focus at the beginning. If that was the direction you decided to go, next time is getting people involved starting sooner. I think that would expedite things. If there was a strategy for a committee that was going to work on this and be representative of the community, I think that would help. But I think you're not out of realm. I know San Diego worked for years trying to get a logo, and that was just with staff and the CEO and the executive team not finding their own cohesion and their own consensus. So you're not way out of realm, but I certainly think you could find room for efficiency.
Thank you.
Any other questions from any of the commissioners? Yes.
I just have a comment to make.
Please.
When I looked at the colors and heard the explanation, which also helped for me, so I know that's a teacher sort of thing. But I just looked at the colors and I could just say two words for my reaction, and that is peaceful confidence. And I really felt that looking at it, it was strong and also not pushy, but just peaceful.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Peaceful confidence.
No, Katie, you and your team, in my opinion, again, I'm not a specialist in logos and stuff like that, but very, very fresh. I think it's got a lot of punch. And the font is just absolutely good.
Thank you. Maybe
Any other comments?
that might help us Zoom straight.
Any comments from commissioners on Zoom?
Commissioner Corcoran?
Thanks so much. I just want to just make a couple comments about the team and getting to this decision. Last summer we were caught off guard when a recommendation was sent to City Council, and it had not had a chance to filter through the commission. And Aftab and I approached the staff quickly and really advocated for more city involvement and getting the community involved. As we know, we live in a town. We have a lot of talented people and a lot of points of view about design in this town. And I think that Daniel and his team and Todd as well really embraced that feedback and added in the layers of feedback and reaching out and having multiple opportunities for the public to step in and to provide input. So I think it was a Herculean effort to do that and to make that happen and to reach out to a lot of people. I know selecting logos is never perfect. There's always going to be someone who will not be happy, but I think that we have followed the process. We've involved the community, and I'm thrilled with where it's landed. And kudos to our consultants and to the staff and the marketing subcommittee for all the effort you played in making this happen. And again, one last comment is logos are not forever. We're in the middle of a long-term planning process. Who knows what other ideas may come up as a result of what comes out of that plan. But for now, I think this is great work. And I just want to thank you all because you listened to us. And 8 months later, here we are. And I'm thrilled with it. So thank you.
Commissioner Wiseman?
Yeah, as a member of the marketing committee, I just wanted to commend Aviatrix on creating such a both bold and flexible logo. And it's really impressive work. I was the commissioner that mentioned that it looks like a windmill. And I noticed one other thing that it sort of echoes today, and that's actually the historic facade of the Wexler building. If you would tilt it up to the left a little bit, you can see the echoes of that concrete facade.
Any other commissioner comments before we move on to public comments?
A question, so now we're gonna have to go and, obviously there were dollars involved in creating the logo. Having to put the logo now on uniforms, business cards, et cetera. What is the budget for that?
So I've got an earmark budget in my 50,000 right now, but again, that's not. To settle anything, right? Because we've been waiting to get the logo together for a full branding launch, so I can go through and start getting estimates right now. So I've got an earmark, but it's not definite budget just yet. But I do have funds set aside this fiscal year and additional for next fiscal year because July is just a few months down the road. Anticipating that we'll be rolling this out throughout the rest of 2023.
And can you remind me again what the original impetus was in order to change the logo? From what it was? Why the idea to change the logo, what was the impetus?
Well, as Kate mentioned earlier, the original logo doesn't really have any versatility to use in other things. Also in applications like just putting on a uniform, the way it is, just the wording and getting it embroidered is really difficult to do things like that. We also did extensive research through the Valley Forest surveys, and also we did our marketing communications plan for the stakeholder review. The number one thing to come out of the new marketing communications plan is to develop a full comprehensive brand that's reflective of the airport itself in order to help promote us and for advertising and marketing efforts.
Thank you. So 50/50, FY 23, FY 24, total plus or minus.
Yeah. I don't know if it won't cost that much. Again, we haven't started getting quotes yet, but now that we have the logo, once it goes through council and gets approval, then I can start reaching out, start getting firm things together, and we're gonna do it. But yes, that's just what I have set aside right now.
Any other comments from commissioner before we open to the public? Seeing none, Christina?
Okay, so now we will open up for public comments on this item only. You will have 2 minutes to speak. Please raise your virtual hand so we can see you in the queue. If anyone would like to speak at this time from the public, please raise your virtual hand. If you're having trouble finding your virtual hand, you may unmute yourself and start to speak. Please announce your name. Okay, Chairman Dada, we do not have any public speakers or public comments for this item.
Thank you, Christina. Harry, would you like to have a motion and an approval from all the commissioners, or this will suffice?
I think it's appropriate to have a motion and.
Yes, sir.
Just making it.
I make a motion that we approve the logo and also then the people that worked on it, both the marketing and consultants.
Second.
Second from John. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Katie, thanks to you and your team, as well as Todd and the entire committee for spending tons of hours, and to the entire staff. And very, very, very impressed, personally myself. I actually wanted to make a motion, but Ken took my. All right.
Good job, team. Good job.
We move on to Todd again.
So that was the marketing update, so that was the entirety of the committee's meeting at at our last meeting, so we had no other agenda items. And I don't know if Daniel has anything that he would.
I have my standard presentation, all the typical information I usually provide if you guys like for that. So those in the packet, but I was going to run through it. So a few different things in it are quite a little out of normal, so I would expect some context if you want me to do that.
I think that
Okay. Okay, so, what's going on here? There it goes. Okay, so typical numbers that we have, the February passenger count came in at a 27.9% increase over February 2022. It is a new monthly record, which that record was previously set in 2020. Last February and January, if you remember, we had the Omicron variant, so numbers were depressed, then everything rebounded quickly in March of last year. We had a total of 373,850 passengers pass through the terminal. So very excited that we set yet another monthly record. It's kind of becoming like a bit of a habit, I guess you could say, for us. Flair is one of our Canadian carriers, ultra low cost carrier. They will be starting to wind down their second season here. Their first route ends on March 25th. That is the first of our seasonal routes to start to dissipate as the season winds to an end later this year. And the rest of the routes will pause in April. As the seasonal routes start coming to an end each month, I'll put them in here just so you guys are all aware of these.
Before you, just a question, do you anticipate them coming back next season, or do you have any feelers? I mean, how do you kind of assess that?
We have a meeting with them next week to discuss the next season, discuss different opportunities and see what they may be looking at. They might be considering some different cities as well, so I'll have more information probably at the next meeting.
Okay.
Yep. All right.
Thank you.
Going on, looking at our scheduled departing seats, I only have 2 months on this one, April and May. They haven't changed very much since our last meeting. April's up 12% compared to April of 2022. May is up 10% compared to April of 2022 as well. This one I want to put in, so I want to put some context. If you see the numbers, we are actually down compared to 2022. Well, I went back and looked at 2019. The reason I included that is because that was the previous busiest year on record that we'd had prior to 2022. You can still see when it comes to departing seats, we are still well above where we were in 2019. And I know it seems a little bit negative because each month is showing, a double-digit decrease in available seats, but I'm not completely concerned about it. The reason is, as you see here on the screen, in June of 2023, we have over 85,000 scheduled departing seats right now. So to put in a little bit of context, I went and looked at the departing passengers we had in June of last year. We had 73,861 fly out in June. So if you compare that to the available seats, we still have enough room to carry all of the same amount of passengers we had last year, plus an additional 15% in growth. Same thing carries through July and August. Looking at departing seats compared to employments, we have room for nearly 20% growth in July and then almost 23% growth in August. So while we do have a reduction in seats, overall, there still is plenty of room for us to carry the passengers we had, plus bring in additional traffic. So I'm not overly concerned about any negative impacts on the airport as a result of this.
Do you have that by airline? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
And then on just the general numbers, what's the margin for error? 2-3%? I mean, confidence in whatever number.
Well, so this number all comes from the U.S. Department of Transportation, and that number comes from the reporting that airlines are required to do every month. So they have to report a 10% sample of all their ticket sales. So it's pretty confident. They're pretty accurate. Yeah. Some other additional lists I want to say, again, just mentioned it earlier, we have more scheduled summer flights and seats than we did in 2019, which again was our previous record year. I also want to say that we are not alone on this. Alaska actually has reduced their entire network throughout June and July. There's a lot of heavy reductions in the Bay Area. If you guys have heard the news, there's a lot of tech layoffs going off. So that's some of the impact from that as well. United's done some reductions as well, I believe. American network-wide for the entire summer cut 50,000 flights. Actually, most airlines have reduced summer flights throughout the entire nation as compared to 2022. Some of the reductions in tech force, but also, if you guys remember last summer, airlines were overscheduled for the amount of staff they had. So this will help them run their operations much more smoothly. We shouldn't have some of the hiccups that we had last year. So make sure I want to add that information for you guys in case you had any questions on it. And that would be the end of my update for you all.
When you look at Flair, which had some problems with the airline leasing, do you have the ability through yourself, Daniel, or your consultants to look at their enplanements and percentage and seat yield and capacity, yada, yada, and say, you know what, I don't think they're coming back, Harry. I think we're going to lose this one. I got to go find a replacement, or I don't need to find a replacement.
We do get that data from the DOT, but it's a little late. So typically we're about 3 to 6 months behind depending on so it's released on a quarterly basis. So right now what I'm able to look back is through the end of 2022. So I don't have anything for the last few months yet.
Okay.
So
it's really what the airline tells.
Yeah.
When it comes to nonstops, because we heard this, I think, in the master plan session, and all of us hear this from people we know, right? I'd like a nonstop to blank. How do you look at that, and how do you determine this is the nonstop I wish I had? Is there a nonstop you wish you had today?
There's a lot of them.
I think that, like, the most important nonstop from a revenue perspective or a customer sat perspective.
For a customer for the valley, for our needs, it's definitely, again, we work with Visit Greater Palm Springs in our air service development efforts, and we have a consultant, Avon Pacific Consulting. We all have priorities. Our target, so we have, and if you remember the Senate program, we have target cities on there than other cities. The target cities, our target priorities right now are to get secure year-round service to Chicago, New York, Houston, and Atlanta.
That is the top group A.
Yeah, yes, basically getting ones like those, a lot of connectivity, also securing service to DC. I do know we lose a lot of potential convention business because of lack of service to DC, so that's another one we're actively working on.
Just so you know, it took me 2 days to get back here from DC last week.
I do not envy
On
that.
American. On American through DFW.
Oh, no.
Unbelievable.
Weather.
4 broken planes.
Oh, my gosh.
Boarded and then unboarded.
Well, I will do my best to get you a nonstop.
I
yeah, so-
the only other nonstop, again, would be to LAX.
Yes, so we have that on a seasonal basis, and pre-COVID, we had several daily on that one. But to LAX, I know a lot of people would like that, and that's a story we're trying to tell to the airlines. So the airlines view it as they want to flow traffic over LAX. They don't think people are really going to drive from here to LA because it's not that far, but trying to put into context how exhausting it can be to travel anywhere in the LA metro area, thanks to traffic. Yeah, we know we get a lot of requests for more LA service. People also put in some individual requests to us just asking for Burbank or maybe Long Beach, things like that where they want to go. And there are some smaller carriers out there. If you remember the Senate program, we wrote one. And there's one that's kind of started up that I've been discussing that actually couldn't be do commuter service to places like there, maybe just within Southern California. So we look at that. But all of our priorities are set by the data that we receive. So we look at cell phone data, Big Brother stuff that we get, Visa View credit card data. There's also the DOT data that we get through DO. We kind of see where the demand is coming from. We can see, there's another software program I have that they've recently installed. It's previously been used for retail, like Target, et cetera. And now they're developing, that's actually good for airport for air service development. So looking at it, and I'm able to see now, well, these people are coming to our area. They're from, let's say, Minneapolis, but I can see by the number of people coming here, they didn't actually fly here. We can try and break it down, see where the airports they flew to, and use that as additional data that we present to an airline and say, actually, you can capture those people that are coming here anyways, might as well fly them here instead of this other airport. So there's all kinds of different data sources leveraging us and Visit Greater. I keep saying CDB, apologies, Todd, Visit Greater Palm Springs, that we work together to provide the information.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Daniel? Thank you, Daniel. We move on to the ad hoc design review committee update.
That would be Vice Chairman Corcoran.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Is Victoria with us?
Yes.
Okay, good. So we had our follow-up meeting, our next meeting with the folks at Parodies and with the Marshall Group. And I think the meetings were really successful. And we had a lot of progress around issues that were important to us, things like menus and schedule and also naming. And we'll talk about some of that in a minute. And I think we gave some great direction to both organizations with ideas that will be actionable and make a difference in this. Victoria, let me just defer to you for a second if you want to share some of the highlights from your perspective, and then we'll talk about next steps.
Sure, absolutely. So we did have quite a few meetings, a total of 4 every month with Parodies and Marshall Retail Group. Some of our successes included naming and updating the renderings for the Bono bar. We actually received a lot of input from our community and our partners that Visit Greater Palm Springs, as well as Palm Springs Resorts. And there was tons of names. We went through them all and everybody dialed in on one name, Captives to Clouds. So that is going to be the bar that is going to be in the center of the Bono. And the great thing is that Parodies went through and they checked the naming rights, and it is available. So we're going to be able to name it that. We also worked with the Marshall Retail Group on the Bono Retail. And we changed the name from Mojave Oasis to Las Palmas Oasis. So that was something that we all decided on. In addition to that, we determined the location of where we're going to place a coffee and ice cream truck in the courtyard, as well as, like Commissioner Corcoran said, we talked about the enhanced menus and including better health options to help address cultural diversity of the community by introducing kids menus, hot chocolate, different grab and go items, and more food options. We also came up with some solutions for the flow of passenger traffic at the new Alameda Soul and Coachella Valley Coffee, and also talked about enhanced seating and the functionality and the comfort of seating for our passengers as they enter the airport and go into those areas there. In addition to that, we have weekly meetings with both Marshall Retail Group and Parodies that we talk about all things such as sustainability, internet, the construction schedule, and we decided that we're going to bring that forward to the commission and just do updates and let you know how the progress is going with the concessions program. So, Commissioner Corcoran, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I do want to have some other comments, but let me go to Kevin and to Todd and to David. Would you guys add anything else that you're on the subcommittee with us?
Maybe just that we looked at potentially accelerating the timeline for I think it's now PSB Coffee construction, but it was too risky. So we decided to keep it as originally proposed.
No, the only thing I would add is the process has been thoughtful, right? We are all high users of this airport, and we know our normal traffic flows, and we know our patterns and the things that we would get at 5:30 in the morning versus 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I would say that our partners that we've chosen are really hearing what we've had to say. They've come back with some really great alternatives. And so I would just say the process has been quite good, and I think all been pleased with the final result when we get there.
David, any other comments? David Feldman?
Yeah, I would just add that I felt like my particular emphasis was on the food offerings as well as some customer experience issues. And I would just say that Parodies was very responsive to that feedback and really transformed what they gave us at the beginning, which really doesn't fit or didn't fit our demographic and our diversity in both tourists and local residents, and really came up with, I think, menus that we'll be proud of, and I think they'll be open to evolving them if we have more feedback along the way. They get a lot of credit for being open to evolving what they brought to us in the first place.
Thanks, David. So just a couple comments as we move forward. Again, kudos to to Victoria and team, your patience and getting us involved and making sure our voices were heard is much appreciated. One of the things that was very important to me is to make sure that local brands who were not part of the Parodies or the Marshall Group presentations would have access and have an opportunity to share what their ideas, or perhaps if they were aligned with Hudson or some of the other competitors. And both Marshall Group and Parodies have been open to that process. I'm happy to tell you that I did get feedback today that Destination PSP had a productive meeting with the Marshall Group, and they feel like they have a really good shot at putting in some of their items which reflect some of the modernism choices and whatever's that we thought were lacking from some of the Marshall Group pieces. But more importantly, to what winds up where is the process of reaching out to Marshalls in this particular situation was well received, and I think we'll reach out to some other organizations who have said they would love a shot at both of these groups to see if their products, their Palm Springs specific products, can wind up in both the retail and the food and beverage side. So I'm thrilled that happened. We'll be interested to see where all that lands and what the choices are. Now, one of the things we haven't discussed as a commission was what we do next. And I guess I'm open to suggestions here, Harry. One thought is that, with the naming issues and some of the other stuff that we just addressed, with that being done, is it sufficient to have a monthly update on the concessions process or concessions project at our meetings? Or should we keep the ad hoc committee available on a quarterly basis to get updates on product choices and some of the other open issues that both organizations will be working on? I'm kind of open to either suggestion here, but I think the only thing left is updates, making sure that we're seeing what the timetables are and whatever, but also what the final products, the final menus, products, and services as they evolve as well. And I'm open to both suggestions and how we as a commission continue to be informed over the process. So Harry, Aftab, anybody else, do you have suggestions on what's the best way to keep in touch with this and what's most productive for the staff?
Well, I'm happy, from the airport side to provide a monthly report as things progress with both MRG and Paradies. And if there are issues that evolve from, either one of their planning or development processes, we can certainly discuss them. But I can do just like I do with.
We just disconnected. One.
Where's
We're
Larry?
here.
Still here.
We're here.
Okay.
Well, we can't see you, but I'm open to providing a report just like I do with the capital projects and my executive director report in writing. And then if there's something that a particular commissioner or the commission wants to discuss, I'm happy to report out on that as needed, if that's appropriate. So,
Any comment from any of the commissioners? Seeing none, Kevin and your team and all the commissioners, great job spending so much time with passion to getting this finally wrapped up, and we're all grateful about that. So thank you.
And thank you to the
same
team.
staff.
Thank you to the
All
team.
right. Victoria, we move up to financial summary of it.
All right, let me try to share my screen. Give me 1 second. All right, 1 second. Okay. All right, so this is the financials that are ending February 28, 2023. Really briefly, Fund 405 has a net balance of over 4 million in revenue, which is about 75% of the budget. Fund 410 has about 3 million in net revenue, which is about 68% of the budget. Airport operation and maintenance has a whopping 18 million net revenue, primarily because we had about 12 million from grants that we received a couple of months ago. In your financials, you'll see that there's a breakdown of some of our high revenue accounts that we received, as well as our expenditure accounts, but still overall we have a net surplus of 18 million. Our capital projects fund remains the same as prior period. Ultimately, we end up pulling from our fund balance if there's any deficits. However, for this account, we haven't done our drawdown yet, which is expected to take place later on this month, and we'll probably receive our reimbursements from the FAA for some projects that we have going on. And we'll see that in April's, most likely April's financials. And then our cash summary shows that the Fund 405, which is our customer facility charges, has about 33.6 million. Our Fund 410 has about 2.5 million. Our unrestricted fund balance, our cash fund has 25.3 million. And then our Fund 416 special capital projects has about 6.1 million. That concludes the financial summary. Does anybody have any questions? Scott?
Yes, so it says the charts indicate that this is ending February 28th. Is that most of the accounts tallied and accounted for?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's all of our revenue and expense accounts. A majority of the revenue accounts are not listed on there, or most of them are listed on there, but not all of them. We have it lumped into other.
Okay, so if we go to page 2 of 8, which is Fund 410. It shows that budgeted is $6.8 million. And collected as of February 28th is 3.4. So do you feel that in the next 4 months, that you will make up that $4 million difference?
So the way our passenger facility charges work, they're a little delayed. So we're receiving passenger facility charges for, sometimes our airlines will remit them at the end of the quarter. So we get them at a delayed time. So we could, even after June 30th, we could still be receiving passenger facility revenue charges well into July, August, September for this fiscal year's passenger facility charges, just because it takes a little bit for the airlines to remit them over to the airport.
Okay,
So essentially, yes,
So February 28th isn't really hard, it's kind of a soft.
correct. Yes, we're still receiving them as they send them in.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I had one on CARES Act. That's a gift from the feds, right?
Yes,
And so that goes away. So it's 21% in the pie chart on page 4. That goes away in FY 24.
we have exhausted all of the CARES grant funds. So
So it's already spent.
we have already requested reimbursement for all of the CARES funding. We are no longer going to get any more reimbursements because we've completely exhausted it.
Got it. So we've been doing so well, though, in FY 23. There's a kitty someplace,
There's a what?
a kitty, a surplus, slide fund.
Oh, yes,
Because we got some Fed money, right, but we've done very well when it comes to employment, so there's a chunk of change somewhere, right?
correct. Yes.
Where would
So-
that be?
So if you look on the cash summary, where it says that there's 25 million,
Okay,
that is where that chunk of change is hanging out.
rocket, and that's completely discretionary today?
That is, available funds that essentially we could use, and it's just sitting in our fund balance.
So it's just, I would say discretionary, you can use it however you want this.
And that's not money we have to get back to the airline.
No.
It's coming out, it's coming out, wait for Arizona.
And then my last question is on the operations and maintenance. I'm assuming that you have such a large, I guess, non-expenditure of funds. It's not what we call that, but because you funded fully for positions that you haven't hired yet. And so you have a large salary surplus.
I mean, when you compare it to prior year, our total expenditures were about 13.7, and even the prior year to that was 12.3. And so we have increased our operating expenditures, which does include salaries and benefits, but as well as operation and maintenance. We haven't hired for all of the positions that we originally requested for because we're still going through that process. So yes, you're correct. It doesn't include all of the positions that we requested for fiscal year 23.
Right, 'cause you're,
And you can carry it over. You don't lose it. Nobody takes that money away because you didn't hire that much.
And we'll budget for it
Yeah.
for fiscal year 24.
But you can carry,
no, it doesn't automatically, the city council has to.
do they normally approve it?
Generally,
Okay.
And we go through the process. We talk with our city manager, we talk with our finance department, our human resources department. We present what we are requesting, such as the positions that Harry presented at the last airport commission meeting for the next 2 fiscal years. So we get those, we do decision packages, we submit those to the city manager and we review them with the other departments. So then we hope to include them if they are approved.
But there isn't a clawback. That's all I'm trying to figure out is. If you're general funded, there's a clawback, you're zeroed out, you've got to make the argument again, there's no clawback.
the only thing that's at risk of getting called back is any federal funds granted to us.
Yes.
Because the airport's an enterprise fund, so the money can't go back to it.
Chris Mooney, you wanted to make a comment, and then Commissioner Wiseman will come to you next. Chris, you have your hand up?
And just so you're aware, Chris Mooney is the assistant director for finance at the city.
Chris, if you can hear us, you can speak at this time to the commission. Okay, we'll come back to you, Chris. Commissioner
It
White.
looks like a claw.
Yeah, so just with the recent news of the banking turmoil last week and Silicon Valley Bank, I wanted to just poke the finance committee to reassess the treasury management practices in the new era that we've entered.
And you had a question?
I'll skip. Thank you.
Okay. Maybe Chris can, from the city, can answer Kevin regarding your question about the city's treasury and the new world that we are living in after the collapse of several banks.
Says its audio is not working.
Yeah, we don't seem to be connected to him.
Yes.
I'm going to speak for Chris,
So that's because Chinese says the audio is not working.
but having worked in public finance, state law specifies specifically what a city can and cannot invest in. And I don't think there's any exposure or very little exposure to any of those banks that have, I guess they have failed. So I think the city is pretty safe, and thus the airport is safe because the city invests for the airport.
And I concur with you, knowing that our city currently banks with the second largest bank in the nation, BofA. So if BofA goes under, then we are all in trouble.
No, that's true. That's true. But B of A has to, because we are governmental funds, B of A has to provide above the line liquidity. So their securities and things of that nature have to cover by 110% what the city deposits into their accounts. So I think the city is first.
Having said that, any other question? Seeing none, thank you, Victoria, and we move on to 7F. Project and airport capital improvement program update, Harry.
So that report was provided in writing in your package, and I'm happy to answer any questions. It was pretty lengthy, so we're gonna go through all that today. Yes, sir.
Could we add, if you're okay, under outbound baggage handling system replacement, could we have a placeholder for inbound? I think there was an article in the paper a couple of weeks ago, and I think the 5.7, correct me if I'm wrong, was from the feds for inbound baggage, correct?
And it should be in the report.
No, there's a highlight outbound baggage, and I'm just thinking there's another thing for inbound, just because there are two separate things that are. Are they? Okay. I don't.
Which one are you looking at? There's two different memos.
Oh. Okay, maybe it's the second memo. Okay. Why? Okay, all right. On to airport leasing use. Could you go into a little detail on the first bullet about methodology, hybrid compensatory? We have that rental car income, is that safe or is it not safe? So your thoughts?
Well, there's a lot there. So,
I have to.
so we, in the new agreement, we did convince the airlines that it was appropriate to move from a residual agreement to a hybrid compensatory agreement. So instead of the airlines funding the entire operation of the airport, and then us reimbursing the airlines and showing up in the year, what will happen going forward, assuming the city council blesses it, is that the airlines will fund the airfield only, operation of the airfield only, at a cost recovery basis, and then the airport is responsible for generating revenues when it's like. And then there's a revenue sharing component of that of 50-50%. So they get 50 back, we get 50% of revenues from concessions, rental cars, services, that. In terms of the rental car revenue, with the revenues themselves, obviously that's profit sharing with the CFCs, those are going to remain the same. So if you're concerned about consolidated rental car facility, we still get that money that's from last January by 6%. Really what's important here for us is building up our non-aeronautical revenues, making sure that our parking revenues stay consistent, our concessions revenues, any creative ideas on how to generate other types of revenue that aren't affiliated with the airfield. That we're looking at those over time and making sure that we're making the best deals, so that we're able to stay above water. But it should, this new agreement should be fair.
Is there any revenue that's not shared with the airline?
There are a couple of revenue streams that are not shared with airlines. Victoria could probably provide more insight.
The passenger or the customer facility charges, the $5, $9 per day up to 5 days. That's one. And then the passenger facility charges that $4.50 minus 11 cents that the airlines collect. So those are the two that are restricted that are not shared.
Help me out, because customer facility charge different from PFC, and how's it different? What's that charge covered?
So the customer facility charge is a fee that is assessed by the car rental companies. It's different from the gross revenues that the car rental companies remit to us. So it's a fee that's assessed on all of passenger reservations. And depending on the reservations, we could charge $9 per day up to 5 days max.
Got it. When it comes to approving master plan capital projects and any other projects derived out of master plan, what say do the airlines have? Do they advise? Do they have to approve? Can you go past them after a certain period of
They
time?
still have to approve some projects. The good thing about this deal that we negotiated is, whereas we had to go to the airlines for projects over $300,000, we've now raised that minimum up to $1 million. So that a little more flexibility. Most $1 million projects are going to be in the interest of the airlines anyway. So, you know, they still get a vote, but the way the language is written is if they choose to veto and not fund that, we can just go outside and use our own streams to fund the project.
And would that be true for all projects? If you want to do them, you really feel it's important and you want to do it, you can bypass the airlines, even if they don't like it.
Yes.
Got it. Great. And when it comes to new gates and then the taxiway and anything on the taxiway, not the airfield, but the taxiway, is that part of cost recovery rescission?
Yes.
Okay, does it stop at the gate or the air bridge? Where's that? Or is it the terminal building wall?
Yeah, so it stops at. Technically, it stops at the east area, so at the concourse, it stops. At the east area, but-
Sorry, could you say again?
Oh, sorry.
That's good.
It stops within their lease area, so the way the deal is structured, they cover everything really on the outside of the concourse. However, there's an element in there that allows for per use fees and per use charges. So if they're leasing space in the concourse, for example, one of the mortgage, just say they were using gate 9, they're charged for that on a cost recovery basis as well. And it's based on the number of terms that they're doing in that gate.
So,
Yes.
okay, so, Victoria, because I'm not gonna put her in that spot. So how much, of the budget, total budget, of the airport, would you say is the land side, terminal side versus the airfield side? I mean, just a rough percentage.
I want to say it's in the financials. And we're talking expenses, so. So for our land side, our land side operations is 6%. And you said, what was the other one, airfield?
Yeah,
Airfield is. Oh, airside ops, it says 2% is of the budget for expenses. But then we also have like ARP, that's 15% of the budget. Airport security, 13%, the terminal building operations, 26%. Grounds maintenance, 2%.
so I guess my question is that the vast majority of it is under the airport's control, not necessarily under the.
Yeah. So it gets a little complicated when you get into the details, so. In terms of geography, it's about 50-50 split. In terms of revenue, it really depends on the type of revenue, so for example. Our operations staff completely, for the most part, charged to the airlines, right? Because their whole role is to make sure that the airfield is safe for the airlines to fly. The same with ARP. Now, once you start to get into some of our maintenance activities, well, you need to maintain the terminal, you need to maintain the airfield as well. So there's a proportional expense there for the airlines, revenue and loss. Once you get into those activities. So it really kind of depends on the activity we're talking about, whether it's manpower, whether it's infrastructure, whatever. Positions we're talking about. There's literally, I think, 70-row Excel spreadsheet that Victoria is working off of. And we're going to migrate to something that are, get off the 70-row Excel spreadsheet. But she inputs the information into that Excel spreadsheet and calculates out what's charged to the airlines and what we do.
So, for example, we talked about an IT director or a position like that. I don't want to say director because how would that fall into this?
Yeah, so we would look at how much time they would spend doing things for the airlines or on the air side. How much time that they would spend doing things in administration, on the terminal, on the land side, and we would charge a proportion based on that.
Commissioner President.
Thank you. We're still on 7F. Yes, okay. When I was looking at the report about the sterile area shade structures, which are a good idea to add them, but I thought that it was host security. And I know that the city is working to find out what to do with homeless, but I see that part of their aim is to, have encourage broader use of the airport during the summer month. So I'm sure there'll be an awareness, but I just wanted to know how, that those without a legitimate airport business, how that would interface with the particular locations, et cetera, with the security.
Well, in terms of that, we shouldn't really have any issues just because most of that infrastructure will be installed for security. So unless you have a typical little bandit back there. If we were essentially to install something on the public side, we've got a pretty good team of officers and a pretty good team of airport staff who has done a really good job of identifying when people are legitimately using the airport versus when they're just hanging out and loitering. And, you know, I mentioned this at one of our council meetings, you know, when you're here every day and you see the Pulse Airport every day, you get this sense of, you know, what's supposed to happen and what's not supposed to happen. So I think, there's the risk for that to happen if we were to install shade structure outside. But it would be easily identified.
Thank you.
All right. We move now again, Harry. Executive Director of Public Hearing.
That was also provided in writing. But happy to expand on it.
Yes.
This is this is not a discussion item. So if there's a topic in the executive director report that you'd like to discuss in a future meeting, please direct that to the 15 items in the municipal code to which person you should send that request to, please.
Sorry, I've got a question. We had mentioned at the former commission meeting that there were Measure J funds that were available to the commission or for specific airport operations. And I wanted to find out what's the status of that, or what's the process, what's going on with that?
So that should be directed to the budget and finance committee chairman. And we can,
It's on the agenda.
Okay.
yeah, thank you.
So I'm trying to understand what you said, Chrissy.
Yes,
So the first handout is projects and airport capital improvement program update, which we've talked about.
correct. That is a discussion item.
Okay, and the executive director's report, the items in here we cannot talk about.
That part of the city attorney, that is correct. He's the one who advised me that items that are listed as an executive director report they are not up for discussion. It is just a report.
So if you have questions, how do you?
Yes, that's when.
He advised me several months ago, and I'm happy to have him email the commission. He specifically called it out to me when he attended a meeting, I believe in September. He told me you cannot discuss an item that is not, that is listed as a discussion and action item. That was, he pointed that out to me. So again, if there's items in the report that you'd like to discuss, please send your request in to the committee chair or staff member.
Yeah, and to provide context to that, I think the intent really is that, you know, things that I report out on there, they have the tendency to expand into other topics, and if they're not agendized, then that's problematic. So
Yeah,
that's.
but this was agendized as part of your regular monthly report.
It needs to be agendized specifically in the discussion and action item section.
So
And
it said,
they would need to be listed out separately.
So are other commissions then held accountable for the same process as city council or Palm Springs?
That is correct.
What we could do is, I'll reach out again to the city attorney, Jeffrey Bellinger, and knowing Christina is sharing with us, we need to abide by it unless we get further clearness.
Can I make a suggestion then? Why don't we just add it as a discussion item on the agenda?
Then we need,
And
we
then-
have to list out every single item.
Well, you have it listed out pretty well in the report.
Specifically in separately as discussion.
Like
item.
on-
But you know, but we just have update and other topics without specifically listing every single item we're gonna talk about.
I think, yeah,
We can talk to the city attorney and find out exactly how we need to process that.
I think we can further clear it up at our next meeting. So if you have any questions, jot it down and we can discuss it at the next meeting.
so just so I'm clear. If we had under 7F, a B, C, D, E, F, G, a 7G that said executive director's report, and then a sub underneath that, unhoused population, we could then talk about that.
The city attorney told me, do not list executive director report, it's too vague. It doesn't give the public a chance to understand what we're gonna discuss.
So no reason, Commissioner, time is important, so we can wrap this up at our next meeting, please. All right, we move on.
But respectfully, that argument is over water because the same can be said of any other, seven agency DE.
But they're under discussion items, so we are allowed to.
But so is seven F.
Right, and the items in 7F are discussion items, so we can discuss them. I'm happy to get more information from the city attorney for you. Commissioner Pine, you have a comment?
Yes, these are updates and they're updates for what the committee is doing. When you have the executive director's report, you don't know what he's going to talk about, which can be an agenda item that has not been notified.
Thank you, Commissioner White, for the update. We move on. Commissioner requests and reports.
I'd just like to have the city attorney maybe visit us again, like he did last year. And because I think some of us have burning questions we'd like to talk with him about. And it might be good if he sat here and heard. And so I'd like to request that you invite him to the next commission meeting.
I'll be happy to do that and subject to the availability. Hopefully he can join us. If not, hopefully our new CEO will be here and he can maybe answer.
Okay, but tell me, we could also do Zoom too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, number 10. Don't think we have any.
I'm sorry, we kind of skipped, we skipped past.
I'm sorry.
We skipped past 9.
Yeah,
So request and report. So again, back to protocol. This is where we can bring it in. Yes.
So,
Well, let me bring up the item and you can tell me if we can talk about it. Fair.
well, it's not up for, for discussion.
I'm not gonna go to the report. I won't go there.
No, are we on item 9 now, or?
Yes.
So
Your request.
your request, so commissioner request reports are, let's say. You notice something at the airport and you want to bring it to staff's attention. That would be the commission giving a report and then staff can follow up on it.
Okay,
That's the purpose of commissioner requests or reports.
okay.
But, respectfully, I've been on the commission for 3 years and there's a lot of changes on this commission that are moving forward that we didn't really advocate for.
Yeah, and I assure you, everything I do is by direction of either city staff, city attorney, or city manager, or Harry.
Well, so I have 3 items. I'd love to have kind of ongoing in the marketing report, if you can support it. The nonstop, I'll call it Group A that you spoke to. So the DC, whatever the Chicago, whatever that list is, that is what I'll call the top list that we're shooting for nonstops. And just where are we, what airlines are interested, no movement this month, just some kind of status of nonstops.
That would be something for me to consider, but probably not doable, because a lot of those conversations about proprietary with the airlines, they do not want those publicly disclosed before they're announced. So we can say.
So they'll figure out, I'll let you do it, figure out some way you can have that discussion, right?
Okay, I'll take it into consideration.
Super duper, and add in a linkage too, if we can. Next one is I'd make a request that the sustainability person for the city, Elise, if she could come to one of our meetings and talk about sustainability. What's the city's perspective, and then how can the airport support it when she's ready?
Okay, so we can do that. So here's the thing, I want the commission to keep in mind that the other department heads, they also have their own commissions, they also have their own activities. It gets really complicated with Leah asking other department heads sometimes to do start initiating. So I can certainly, and I'm happy to, take information back to them, ask them to provide written reports. Happy to do that.
Well, here's the issue. So in our ad hoc design meetings with both Marshall Group and, who the other is? When we talk about sustainability, they say, we'll do whatever the city wants. We'll do whatever the city wants. And Victoria says, well, we just hired a new sustainability person, Elise, if I got the name right?
LP,
Lindsay.
Lindsay Page.
Thank you, LP. And so they defer to the city and LP to tell us what you want us to do. So all we're trying to do is figure out, okay, great, what is the Palm Springs city's direction when it comes to sustainability? Sure, so that's the ask, whether she comes in person or you do a report, whatever you want to do. Okay, but have no clue what the city's position on sustainability.
So just provide you with that position.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, how do you deal with waste management? Are you gonna go no gas, all the yada, yada, yada? We're gonna do hydrogen, or we're gonna do EVs. Okay, just whatever her thinking is, knowing that it will change, if she's very good here.
Commissioner Payne and Commissioner Miller, with respect to time, I will be requesting both the city manager as well as the city attorney to hopefully, subject to their availability, join us at the next meeting and hopefully can answer all your questions.
Okay, just make sure to put under the discussion category.
We will let Christina decide on that, subject to consultation with her. Having said that, any questions or anything relating to 11 airline activity?
I think Vice Chair Porter has.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Corcoran?
Yeah, I just have one little comment, then I got to peel off. One of our local citizens contacted me today and talked about the experience of dropping off his aunt at the airport for the 550 Dallas flight, the notorious first flight out of Palm Springs. He said that he and his aunt walked through the baggage claim area and trying to get access to the gates and encountered 20 homeless people sleeping in the baggage claim area. This is at 5, before it's like 5:30. I don't have a comment about this, but I do want to say for future meetings, Harry, I would like to get an update on the progress that we're making. It was really disappointing to get this feedback from a very, very reliable person today who said that that impression was scary and unfortunate. And again, coming through the baggage claim side of the airport in time for the 5:55 American flight to Dallas. If it continues to be an issue, we know it's an issue, but we need to be advised about the progress that we're doing. I'm impressed with the police chief, supportive of Andy Mills' effort in his new initiative to do it. I think it is having an impact. I'm at an event tonight where he spoke about it. But when I hear this, that people are walking in and experiencing this, 20 people sitting in the baggage claim area asleep, that concerns me. I don't know if it's right. I'm just raising it as an issue, and I'd love to have an update at our next meeting because it sounds like we still are encountering this issue and hope to get an update on what's happening. Hope it's good news and progress because I know in the other part of the city it is, but hate to hear this feedback. So that's my commissioner's request for the next meeting to get an update on how we're doing with the homeless situation.
Counselor, can you tell me what day that was again? Because I'd like to look into.
I don't know, but I think it's recently, in the last couple of days. Now I'll share that with you and I'll let you know. But it was distressing to hear this person reach out with that detail. And just for future meetings, I'd love to get an update, Harry, if possible, please.
Sure.
That's all I have off top.
Thank you so much. All right, any committee updates? Number 12.
Yep, we're just scheduling the subcommittees as they're needed. The schedule is provided in the package.
Thank you. Before we make a motion to adjourn this meeting, I would like to thank our commissioner, Jan Schmidt from Indio, this is his last meeting. And John, on behalf of the entire commission, your service, your dedication, your knowledge that you shared over the period of time is very, very much appreciated. And I believe your city has appointed a new commissioner. His name is Rick Weiss, I believe. And Rick has 30+ years of Alaska Airline background. So.
Yeah, he was the CEO of Alaska Airlines, the credit union for the 10 years before he retired. I had a chance to meet with him one-on-one yesterday to tell him about all of the horror stories surrounding all of you.
And he ran away screaming.
I was hoping, but it didn't quite work out. Anyway, he's very eager. I believe that he would fit very well in the budget committee. But that's my own personal perspective. But what I would say is I've had 6 years of enjoyment and challenge. And I've been in the airport business one way or another for 40 to 45 years on 3 continents. And this has been the first opportunity that I've had to sit in a commission role. Normally, I'm coming to bended knee to a commission, but it's been a very, very enjoyable 6 years. And I wish all of you great luck, primarily in the master plan.
That's all.
Thank you.
From the stranger can always come and join us.
Would you like my seat?
All right, I will entertain a motion, and if there's nothing from the Zoom, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting, and our next regular meeting is scheduled for April 19th, 5:30, and we also will have the same hybrid meeting, and I will do my utmost to bring in our CEO as well as the city attorney to answer all of your questions. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Okay.